But I want to start out with this extraordinary new plan that the Republicans are promoting. There is some dissension. Mitch McConnell has said he's not completely down with it, but by and large, this is the new Republican plan. You keep in mind, it's been, I think, about 8 years, maybe 9 years, since the Republican Party had an actual platform. When Donald Trump became their nominee in 2016, they just eliminated the platform for all practical purposes. I mean, well, they had the old Republican platform. They took out the anti-Russia stuff from it and the pro-Ukraine stuff. That was Paul Manafort's work. He had worked for Yanukovych in Ukraine, you know, the Putin's toady there. And then he went to work for Donald Trump for free to run the campaign. And surprise, surprise, they took out all the, well, anyhow. So, but since then, in 2020, they didn't even have a platform. No platform. I guess it's been 6 years. No platform. They just, you know, whatever Donald Trump wants, you know, we're good with dear leader. Well, stepping into this breach comes Senator Rick Scott. He's the second richest man in the United States Senate behind Mitt Romney, who may well be a billionaire. Rick Scott is a $100 millionaire, or at least $100 millionaire. And, or so we are told. And you may remember him as the guy who's ran the company that was convicted of the largest Medicare fraud in the history of America, and then took the money and ran for governor of Florida. I believe it was 8 years he was governor of Florida. During that entire time, he refused to expand Medicaid. So low-income, working-class people, working people in Florida did not have health insurance. Still don't. I mean, you know, Ron DeSantis is still doing this too. But you know, that's kind of his history. Then he took his money and used it to run for the Senate. And now, like I said, he's the second richest guy in the Senate. Romney famously said back in 2012 when he was running against Obama in a private fundraiser, he said, there are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe the government has the responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, you name it. These are the people who pay no income taxes. And Mitt Romney was right. In 2012, 47% of Americans made so little money that they didn't hit the threshold to pay income taxes. Now, this is where it gets really amazing. And the piece is over at HartmannReport.com. Of course, today it's titled Revealed, New GOP Plan to Raise Taxes on Working People and End Social Security and Medicare. And there are links to all the sources on this. But when I was researching this yesterday afternoon, when I was writing this piece, I was astonished to discover that in 1982 or 83, I'd have to check the link, you know, before Reagan's policies really bit the middle class. I mean, he had just begun his war on unions. We still had about a third of Americans having a good union job, and union jobs are always the wage floor setter in communities. And so you had another third of Americans who had the equivalent of a good union job. So 2/3 of Americans had a good union job or its equivalent in the first couple of years of the Reagan administration. And so in 1983, his third year in office, I guess you could say, only 18% of Americans made so little money that they didn't pay income taxes. Reagan then flattened wages. We've seen wages completely flat for the last 40 years, and as a result of that, inflation has gone along. As a result of that, what you could do with one wage earner in 1980 now takes two wage earners to maintain that same standard of living. In other words, household income has remained steady since the Reagan Revolution. And what's so weird is if you search for this information on using search engines, you'll find almost nothing but household income. It's really, really hard to find the individual income numbers, but individual incomes have gone down, particularly in the face of inflation. And the consequence of this is that 18% of Americans made so little money that they needed to pay income taxes in 1983. It went up to 47% as Reaganism really bit Americans. 47% in 2012 when Mitt Romney was running. It's now 61%. 61% of Americans make so little that they don't have to pay federal income taxes. Now, Rick Scott wants to fix that. Now, you would think the rational way to fix that would be to reverse 42 years of Reaganism. and say, you know, we're going to go back to having unions and good union jobs. But the Republicans hate that. You would think that, you know, if you want more people to pay income taxes, make sure that they get better pay, because once they pop up above the standard deduction, they have to start paying taxes. But no, Republicans call that wage inflation, and they hate that. They don't like that at all. Alan Greenspan, back in 1997, told the Wall Street Journal, you know, that his principal job was to maintain a certain minimum necessary level of worker insecurity. Right. So what's their plan? To get that 61% of Americans who don't pay income taxes to pay income taxes? Is it to raise their wages? No. It's to put a new tax bracket in for poor people. Yes, Rick Scott and the Republicans want everybody to pay taxes. In addition to that, he's proposing that the IRS cut their workforce in half. Now, even today, you know, because Trump laid off about 20% of the IRS workforce or gave them early retirement. And as a consequence, the IRS has basically stopped auditing the returns of very wealthy people because they're so complex, they take so long. They just don't have the workforce for it. Rick Scott, who's worth, you know, millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, he wants to cut 50% of the IRS workforce, obviously, so that they'll stop auditing rich people altogether. He also wants to put a provision in the law that will sunset all federal programs after 5 years, including Social Security and Medicare. Let that sink in. No more Social Security, no more Medicare. I mean, he's got this 11-point plan. There's a link to it in my article, to his actual plan. And it's just breathtaking. Raising taxes on 60% of American voters. And, yeah, I mean, you know, I get it that the billionaires like Rupert Murdoch, this is now all over Fox News, by the way. Rick Scott has shown up over 30 times on Fox News in prime time. Not all of them in prime time, but many of them in prime time. And he is just hawking this. Sean Hannity said, I want to applaud you. I'd like to see the House and Senate come together on these issues, make these promises to the American people, get elected, and then fulfill these promises. Right. Vote for Republicans. They want to raise your taxes.